Welcome, everybody, to Tune In Radio U podcast. I am here with the super amazing Danny Dang. He is a mindset coach that uses breathwork and numerology, among other modalities, to help you live a life without limitations. Welcome, Danny. I'm so glad you said yes. I'm super excited about this episode and interview, and I'm excited about all of them, but yeah, I am really excited to talk to you today, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me and the listeners about exactly what it is that you do, and all the different modalities, what they mean, how
Sure.
how and why you use them. Like, what do you find beneficial?
Yeah. I use the term transformative mindset guide as kind of a blanket term to encompass all the modalities that I use when I'm holding space for other people. So essentially, my purpose and mission is to break down the layers of separation that exist amongst humanity right now. And I do that by holding space for people to realize that they are wearing a lens of perception. Once they realize that they're wearing this lens, then we facilitate situations where they're able to shift that lens and adapt and view their life through, a different lens, thus allowing them to expand further and remembering that they have the power to create whatever reality they choose to experience. So when it comes to holding space for people to live their unlimited lives, I've found in my journey that the modalities kind of adapt, evolve, and I feel like I just keep learning and I don't feel like there's going to be a limit to the modalities that I learn across time as well. I'm always trying to find when I find something new that works for me that I feel could work for somebody else. I just add it in. Um, I I am a facilitator for breathwork, so I practice breathwork and support people in controlling their breath base, whether it's on the inhales or the exhales. Different processes, different patterns of breathing supports with releasing trauma, altering states of consciousness, um, supporting in blood oxygen health and optimization as well. It's really, really powerful stuff. Breathwork for me has changed my life. And I have found it as such a useful tool when it comes to somatic healing. And really, I feel like there's no limit to what you can do with it. There's people that use it for physical healing, and there's all of the emotional and energetic healing that can come with it as well. On top of that, I like to facilitate meditations as well, which has been an interesting thing for me because I used to be really, really self-conscious about my voice. I used to be super, super self-conscious about my voice, and it was like probably was only in the recent years that people were starting to compliment my voice. Everybody's just like, oh, you should do meditations, you should do activations, you should do this. Like, you have just such a great speaking voice. And it was really, really interesting. But that's been something that I've been playing with right now, and it's been really, really fun and really, really cool. I get to be more creative and more expressive. I actually just finished a 6-week course on numerology today, and I was able to produce specific guided activations for the participants in the course, which is really, really cool. I used the sounds of the nature, Puerto Rico, all of the beautiful rainforest sounds of all the animals, which has been really, really awesome. Drops you into a meditative state just like that. It's perfect.
Yeah, I bet.
um, yeah, and let's see, meditation, breath work. There is energetic healing that comes into play. I have my Reiki 2 certification. And on top of that, I have learned other forms of energetic healing from in Indonesia, from a very powerful energetic healer named Jocko, who is ridiculously amazing. For anybody who ever goes to Bali, if they ever the person that they need to find as their tour guide and healer, his name is Jocko. It's just Joko, but he's next level. He's incredible,
Cool.
beautiful soul. Um, I've learned practice energetic healing through him. I'm learning energetic healing right now that goes through ancestral lines. So being able to go through somebody's ancestral lines and break connections from the past to support them in being more open and expansive and navigate more abundantly through this lifetime. Because sometimes we have energetic baggage or trauma from past lives or our parents or generational trauma that is carried from family through family. Like if you think about um, groups of people who have suffered, like traumatic disasters, whether it's like genocide or any of those things like that. Those the descendants from those events are always going to, on some level, carry some part of that emotional trauma. And so this form of healing has actually supported me being able to go back and break those connections so that way they are healing the ancestral line as well as the trauma in this lifetime too, which has been really, really, really powerful. On top of the energetic healing, there is numerology, which is probably at this moment what I'm most commonly known for in my online presence. So I practice what I call intuitive numerology using two forms. There's one, which is the most commonly practiced, is just calculating people's numerology charts based off of their date of birth and the names on their birth certificate. And then I also practice tuning into the frequencies and specific messages that numbers are transmitting. So I believe that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience, and that our highest self already knows all the answers. Our intuition already knows, they're all knowing, all powerful, all loving. So nothing happens by coincidence, and everything happens for a reason. So, so if we take that into account with the addition that numbers make up everything that exists, right? Numbers are everywhere. We use them to count, we use them to quantify, we use them to measure. Even our genetic code is made up of ones and zeros. So if everything happens for a reason, then that means that the numbers that are present at any given time are showing us a message. Answers and guidance is always present around us. All we have to do is be open to receiving the message. So when you learn what frequencies are being transmitted by certain numbers, you're then able to navigate through your life with more awareness, and you have more opportunities to take aligned action towards what it is that you do want to create, as opposed to being a victim or falling victim to the things that happen around you.
Yeah. Wow. So many things, Danny. So many things.
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like I just keep learning, and there's like the little kid in me that wants to do it all. That just wants to learn how to do it all, and I've had to navigate layers of letting go, and like that fear of missing out that I have with myself, just like on doing these things, and knowing to practice discipline and focus on one modality at a time. And they just kind of and I kind of like float from one to another. I completely throw myself into what has my attention in that moment, and I kind of ride that wave for a little bit, and then something comes up. Let's say I'm diving pretty deep into numerology for a few months, and then something just comes up where I have a client, or like a spree of clients that are all asking for distant healings. And then it'll switch over to a bunch of people that all want numerology. It's really, really interesting the way the universe kind of guides me. And every time I shift from modality to modality, I feel like I'm just leveling up.
It's very interesting. The healers and teachers that I've been talking to of late, that have had training in many different modalities, and I think that's the way we're going, is that the teachers and healers of today and tomorrow are going to not specify in just one modality to help people, but in using all these different modalities and being in flow in the present moment when they are with somebody. So if something comes up where, I don't know, Reiki might be the thing that you need to use right then and there for this particular client, great. And then in that same session, tuning into numerology and go, okay, like this is what I'm picking up. And then just kind of flowing in those sessions with their clients and using all these different methods to help people, and not just, and I think that, I mean, for me, that's the way of nature, right? Just to be in flow, and um to not be rigid and use just one way to do something, because that goes against what we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
um and I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. It feels right. It sounds right. And I love what you're doing. I think it's really freaking cool. Um,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
I just have to mention as well, we mentioned earlier, but we seem to have accidentally, maybe not accidentally, coordinated today. If you guys are actually watching the video, you can see that we're a very nice, what is that? Maroon? I don't even know
I
what
would say
color that.
that in the room.
Yeah. Yep. So we're matching. I think that's really cool. And also, what you mentioned about your voice resonated with me as well, because
Mm.
for so long, as I was growing up, so I grew up with my mum just constantly singing at home. She's a homemaker, and she had a beautiful voice. And I grew up just hearing her sing constantly. And I eventually started to sing with her. And that was a thing that we did. Um, and I always wanted to sing like in everywhere and like in public and whatever, but I was always too afraid, right? And I thought, I don't think I have a good voice. Do I have a good voice? I'm not sure. Like, and and then it was later on, like probably in my late teens, I think it was, where I was quietly singing to myself, like with my best friend, and my best friend was like, "You have a really good voice. What are you doing? Like, you need to." And I was like, "Really? Oh my God, I was curious and I didn't know." And now, funnily enough, now that I've been doing this podcast, like since I've been doing this podcast, I've been getting people like, "Oh my God, you have a voice for podcasts. Like, this is
Yes.
incredible." And I'm like, huh, it's just interesting, right? Like again, like the perception we have on ourselves, let alone the world,
Mm.
but how we view ourselves, and the different parts of ourselves, and how we can be completely off track, you know?
Yes.
Um, and then, it's that validation, I guess, from other people that come in, and then that gives us the permission to go, oh, okay, all right, yeah, it's good. So I can do it now. I can use it now. I can whatever. It's just interesting, just interesting. Um, Danny, can you tell me and the listeners how you came to be this person, be this guide, be this
Mm.
teacher, this healer? What's the story behind Danny Dang here?
Yeah. Wow. How much time do we got?
All the time in the world, buddy.
No, yeah. So I was born into a family with three brothers. So there was four of us growing up.
Mhm.
I was born and raised in Texas in the United States. And during my childhood, I was I'm the second oldest son. And during my childhood, I experienced what I perceived as neglect from both of my parents, and a lack of validation, attention, love, appreciation, care, all of those things that we essentially seek to experience from our parents, because our parents are the first relationships that we have with the same and opposite sex. Like that's the first connection that we ever establish with the same sex and the opposite sex. So every single other connection and relationship that we have outside of that is a reflection of that relationship in one way, shape, or form. But I experienced what I would have considered, what I felt as neglect. Felt like my parents didn't favor me like they favored my brothers. And it put me in a position to where I felt like I had to be independent. I felt like I was the outsider. I felt like I was weird. It also I also felt like I was against my brothers a lot too. Like my three brothers, like my two younger brothers they would follow in the suit of my older brother. You know, like he was like the cool brother. Me and my older brother were close in age. And yeah, so like that's kind of the experience that I went through essentially through childhood. Me and my father did not get along. I did not have a very strong relationship with him at all. And because of what I experienced with both my parents when I was in high school, I went through this phase where I just like kind of gave myself and my body away shamelessly just to get like that validation, that connection, that appreciation. You know, I sought it because I didn't receive it as a child. I was super, super confused, and I just wanted somebody to like give a fuck. So I would literally do anything. It was interesting because I didn't realize it until maybe a few years ago when I started my personal development journey. But I was literally playing out a pattern that I had picked up from my own childhood. You know, like I was pursuing people who I knew would not show interest in me, because that's what I experienced with my mom and my dad. Like, you know, like I would feel like I would try to do nice things for my parents. I try to help them out, do things, favors, whatever it might be, just because like I just wanted to help. And I felt like I was getting nothing in response. Like, you know, kind of there was nothing being reciprocated. So growing up, that's why I would pursue the partner. I'd pursue somebody who wouldn't give a shit about me. And then whenever there was people who were really interested in me, I would treat them like shit. And it was all unconscious. Like I was super, super unconscious about the whole thing. Like I didn't even realize it. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't until a few years ago. But that was essentially the phase that I went through high school. And then I started working when I was really, really young. I was 11 years old, like bussing tables in a Chinese restaurant, because my dad told me that in order to buy things, I had to have money. And I took that literally. So I asked him, how do I make money? He's like, you get a job. And I was like, well, how can I work? He's like, well, you can come bust tables. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So I got in and I started working. So from a young age, I developed a work ethic and kind of like this independence that really drove me to be really, really successful at a very young age, you know, because I wasn't scared to work. And like I always wanted to be the best at what it was that I was doing, you know, and it was only for myself. I developed this competition with myself because I had gotten to this point where like I had outdone the competition like that was around me. So like, you know, whether it was classmates or like other coworkers or like things like that. Because once I realized people would pay for performance, you know, like if I could do things faster, better, or do things like that, like I can make more money. Like back then I was really, really money driven. I was like, all right, fuck it. Like I don't have anything else to do. Like, let's go, let's do it. How fast can I do this? How fast can I do that? And I got really, really committed to work. I was probably 18 years old, you know, leading a wait staff. And then from there, I managed a Mexican kind of fast casual diner at 20 years old, 21 years old. I was probably the youngest general manager of a restaurant in the town that I was living in at that time. And I just kept scaling up. No matter what job I took, I was always in a supervisory position. You know, I like to be my own boss. I had a problem with authority. I always wanted to be the smartest person in the room. And I felt like if I knew more than you, that I couldn't listen to you. Like you didn't have credibility. You didn't have credibility with me. I was kind of a punk when I was growing up.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I essentially, so I managed with those restaurants, that Mexican restaurant chain, for about 5 years or so before I resigned. And then I spent some time not working, probably a couple of months. And I started working for a retail clothing company. And that was probably around the time, right before that was probably around the time that I would say my personal development journey would have kind of been started. You know, I was at this space where I was pretty young and I was making a lot of money. Like I was getting paid pretty good for what I was, not for what I was doing, but for how old I was. Essentially, I was getting pretty good. But I was always broke. Like I was always fucking broke. It was terrible. I would get paid the next day or a couple of days after or 3 days after. I didn't have any money. And something would always come up. You know, what we would call money story, like my money story was shit. It was terrible. I didn't realize at the time that that's the money story that I had picked up from my parents, because growing up it was the same thing. My dad would get paid, he would come home, that would be the day he get paid, and then the next day we wouldn't have any money. Whether they spent it on groceries or whatever. And I would ask, hey, can we get this? Can y'all buy this? Whatever. And my mom would be like, there's no money. And I'm like, well, what happened to the money? Like, did we have money yesterday or whatever? And there was never an explanation. And because of that, I was just kind of like left to wonder. And I didn't realize that at the time, again, I was picking up that same habit. So I was growing up and I was earning, like I said, I was making good money. I didn't have too many expenses, or things that are obligations, but again, I was always broke. I was spending it on alcohol. I was spending it on going out to eat. I was spending it on useless material shit that I wasn't even like putting to use. Like I would buy stuff just for the fun of it. Like I had money, so I felt like because I had money, I had to spend it. That was the relationship that I created with money. But working for this clothing company that was commission based, again, I was earning a lot of money, but I was still falling into that same pattern where I was always broke. And I remember there was one moment, one day, that it was the same thing had happened. I had gotten paid, and when I was working there, I would calculate how much I have to sell in order to make this much percent in commission, plus my hours, like what that check would be. Like I know, so I would set goals for myself. And I remember that I had gotten a pretty decent check. And again, the next day, there was no money. Something had came up, and something always came up, whether it was a car repair or a bill or whatever, something always came up. And I remember the next day, and I was furious. I was livid. Because I remember I had checked my bank account in the morning and I saw that there wasn't money in there, and I was fucking pissed. I was just mad. I was off that day, and I was just super emotional the whole day, just angry. I was angry. And back then I didn't know too much. Like I had always been, I would say, aware to an extent, and very observant, but I didn't have the consciousness that I do now. And I was at the point where I was just mad and I wanted to do something about it. And I sat down and I told myself, because I was at the point where I didn't even have money to know if I was going to eat the next day. Like I had no idea. And I was like, all right, if you're going to fix this, if anybody's going to fix this, it's going to be you. And again, that was me playing out my pattern from my old childhood. Like there was nobody there for me. I didn't feel like anybody was there for me. I feel like I didn't have any help. Anytime I asked my parents for anything or asked for a favor or whatever, I wasn't able to get anything. So I was like, all right, so I have to figure this out by myself. And I used to be a very, very analytical thinker. I'm still a pretty analytical thinker, but I was a very, very analytical thinker. And I just went down and I just broke it down, and I was like, I made a budget down to the fucking dollar of how much I was able to spend per day in order for me to start like saving some money and earning some profit. And from there, however the universe decides to work in its own manner, opportunities were presented. I reconnected with an old friend of mine who was now on a personal development journey, and he was just sharing like little things about mindfulness and the law of attraction and angel numbers, and just little things like that. And we would hang out every now and then, and I was like, okay, interesting. Of course, I was like super, super skeptical, and I was like, all right, sure, law of attraction. I was like, you can think
angel numbers. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was like, angel numbers. But I was like, okay, I was like, I'll buy it. And he introduced me to like this free program that was being ran by these two coaches that were based in Australia. And I joined the free program. It's like a 6-day program. And then from there, I joined like their 8-week program. I think it was like 8-week program or 6-week program or something like that. And then from there, I just went like balls deep. I started doing research for myself, and everything that I was learning, I would just take it to the next level. And from there, I became enthralled with the journey of discovering myself and breaking down the layers of patterning, of programming, of motion and energy, like literally everything, like just figuring out who I was, like who was Danny underneath all of the shit, underneath all of the projection that I had picked up and carried on and believed to be my own, underneath all of the emotional trauma that not only I experienced, but that my families had experienced behind them. Like it was insane. And as I began to do that, I started to see incredible progress in my work life as well. Like I was already the top salesperson in my store, like every week. And when I started to do this, I was making even more money. Like I was selling even more. It was ridiculous. Like I almost felt like I didn't have to try. And that's when I began to learn about flow and I was in this crazy state of flow that I felt like lasted for months. It was just like super, super fluid. The whole thing. It was ridiculous. And I got a promotion. They gave me my own store to manage. I moved states, and I was just diving into my own personal development while, you know, working for this company and scaling with them as well. Throughout this process, I had started supporting other people, and it was just kind of like here and there. Like people would just reach out to me, and we would just talk, you know, about things here and there. And I had always been that friend. I was always the helpful friend. I was the friend that everybody came to when they needed to vent, they needed to rant. You know, I was the deep friend. You know, like I was always that guy. And I didn't realize that I had been coaching pretty much like all my life. You know, and it wasn't until I was doing these other programs that I learned that people could make money doing it. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, this is like a thing. And then I learned how much people were making doing it. I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. This is fucking stupid. I was like, they're not even working a fraction of what I work, and they make like 3 times as much as I do. And I was like, this is insane. And then I started to get like feedback. You know, I started to get the feedback from people, just from people experiencing it. Whether it was that they saw me on a live, when they heard a message from me, they saw a post, things like that. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do this, you know? And I had this intention to become an online coach, you know, and I decided to try to start to build my business online while I was working for the retail clothing company. And I had no experience and no idea of like what the fuck I was doing either. And I was just kind of like winging it. I tried to run a free program, went kind of good. We got some exposure out of that, but it's been a really beautiful trial and error kind of process. It was actually numerology that I was able to use as a platform to start generating momentum and exposure. You know, and it was, again, another interesting thing that I navigated. Like when you were talking about people mixing modalities, I went through this whole thing of like, if I start, you know, promoting numerology, am I defining myself as only a numerologist? Am I limiting myself to only being a numerologist? You know, and it was from there, like through that process of learning that how all of things just work together. It's like, okay, no, you know, like you get to be all of it. You get to pull in whatever modalities are necessary for that moment to provide the most, you know, supportive and healing transformational experience. And the way I got started in numerology was from the angel numbers. Actually, I would look them up like here and there, but I always had this massive resistance. Like to this day, there is still some resistance when I look up angel numbers. You know, like yeah, are you familiar with Joanne's scribes or something like that? Like
No.
it's like the angel number index. It's probably one of the most popularly known or looked up angel number indexes.
Okay.
But I would look them up, and I was like, I'm not sure. I was like, maybe not. But I knew that there had to be something more. My entire life, I was fascinated with numbers. I was the nerdy kid in school who liked math. Like, I would sell my answers for the homework. I would finish homework before class was out. Like, I loved math. I could understand numbers. Like, for me, it came easy to me. They made sense. They provided logic and reasoning. And whenever we had to do classwork in math, we always had to show our work. You know, we had to show our order of operations. And that, for me, gave me like that concrete evidence. It was like, okay, we got this answers because this is the operation that we did. And for me, it made sense. So because there was like, because for me that could be checked and that could be reviewed, I was like, it just came easy. And looking up angel numbers, for me, like I said, there was something that wasn't landing. Like it was just kind of off. I would look something up and I'm like, okay, that kind of seems interesting, but it doesn't feel necessarily right. And it was actually one day that I was looking up an angel number that I think it was like on the banner, like on the side banner of the website, there was like a little ad. And it's something about like numerology or like figure out, it was like one of those quick calculator kind of ads that figure out your life path number down that everybody just Googles and stuff like that. It was like, this sounds interesting. What's numerology? And I clicked it and I did this little free report that they do for you. It's like they send you like this 5-minute video. They walk you through like a couple of your core numbers. I think it's like on like numerology.com or something like that. And I was like mind blown. I don't know what happened, but I was ridiculously activated and I spent the next 4 hours just doing research on numerology. It was ridiculous. Like having that little just free mini report, like just shown, like just having that read to me, I was like, holy fucking shit. I was like, that makes sense. I was like, that makes sense to me. So I started looking at numerology. I ordered a book, and I went crazy. Like I became like borderline obsessed because I was like, for me, numbers have always made sense. I was like, now you're telling me that I can use numbers to understand people? I was like, and from there it was just sharing it with people, and it's just now sometimes it just comes out of me like word vomit, and I can't control it. Sometimes I'm just when I'm reading to people, it's wild. I've lost my breath giving readings before.
Wow. Wow. That just shows you how aligned you are with that. Like so aligned. Like obviously there was something for you right at the start with numbers, and then to be able to understand them on a deeper level. I mean, because everything is numbers, right? Like sacred geometry, maths of the universe, like it makes everything up that we know. So of course they're going to have some sort of meaning. Like it just makes sense. It's just logical. And what do you reckon? Do you reckon we do it now? We
Yeah,
go
you want to
into
dive
it?
in?
Yeah. You think? Okay. So
Good.
Danny and I had a chat a few weeks ago just to see, if we wanted to kind of do this together. And well, I fell in love a little bit. I don't know about you, but
Likewise.
And I just had a thought that it would be really fun to kind of do this for Danny to do a little bit of a reading, do what he does, whatever magic he does during the interview. So we're going to do that now. And Danny, I want you to just let loose, like pretend like it's just you and me. I don't care. Whatever stuff comes out is cool. Okay.
Okay.
I'm an open book, basically.
Awesome.
What I'm trying to say.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. So if you want to start with just dropping into our breath, we can just take one deep breath together, just to be present. Just take one deep inhale through the nose. Hold the top. And exhale. All right. So let's see. Ruth, what is your date of birth?
28th of 12th, 1978.
28th of the 12th, 1978. So December would reduce down to 3 because we take 1 and 2. That adds up to 3. 28 is going to add up to 10. 2 and 8 is 10, and that reduces to 1 because 1 and 0 is 1. You said 1978, correct? Okay, that adds up to 25, which reduces to 7. So then we have 7, 1, and 3. All right, if we add all of those up, we get 11. Now, in numerology, the way that I practice it, 11, 22, and 33 are not produced down further. They're what we call master numbers. So from your date of birth, if we add up all those numbers and get that frequency, your life path number is 11. Okay, so 11 is the number of the spiritual messenger. Essentially, this means that you have probably been very, very sensitive throughout most of your life, whether it be energetically, physically, or emotionally. Probably at a very young age, you started to notice a lot of things that probably other people didn't notice as well. You just had this awareness, kind of like this sixth sense. You have a very, very powerful intuition, and there probably could have been a moment in your childhood where you felt kind of alienated or different from others, kind of because they didn't see what you were seeing, so you kind of felt alienated. You may have retreated to your own imagination, and kind of like been like not wanted to be around more people, and just really just kind of like stuck to yourself and really kind of delved in your imagination. Sometimes people who are born with the life path 11 are born into what could potentially be like troubling childhoods, just because sometimes if they have parents that don't get along, they can see what's going on, like they can see who's at fault, and also who's like the victim, and they get kind of conflicted because they feel for the parent that is like the victim, but they can't really bring themselves to tolerate that behavior because they know that that person deserves more. They know that that person could do more as well. So sometimes you might run into falling in love with people's potential, where you see what they're capable of, and that entices you, and you want to support them in that, to reaching that. But sometimes we overlook that people can only meet this because they fit themselves, and you might struggle with whether it's letting people go or would say letting people go, or supporting others. Like sometimes it can be a little bit difficult for you because what's necessary, like what the next steps are for that person. It's like, hey, all you have to, like, it's super easy. All you have to do is this, and this, and then you got it. But maybe they're not ready, and they're not in that space just yet. So sometimes they can be a little bit of a conflict, or a little bit of a struggle just within yourself, because sometimes you might have, like earlier on, you might have a tendency to allow that situation to mean something of yourself because you're so energetically sensitive, because you feel what they feel so much. Speaking of which, you're probably a very powerful empath, meaning you probably step into a room and already feel like what's going on, like who's up, who's down. Like you can probably feel somebody in the corner that might be feeling like they have the worst day going on right now. Probably even to the level where you might physically feel what other people are feeling as well. So it's very, very important for life path 11s to protect themselves and to guard, and just make sure that they are just like protecting their feelings and releasing what is not theirs, because they have a tendency to pick that up from other people. Also, as an 11, you have a tendency to attract highly energetic situations, almost like a lightning bolt. So if you're not very grounded, things can kind of like throw you about. You may have found, if you probably reflect over the last few years, you can see where things may have shifted kind of rapidly, like you may have pivoted, from one point, like, or you may be going through a flow and something just kind of seems random or like out of the blue. And it's just because your energetic signature attracts this vibration because you're so sensitive, you're just so open that you can feel it before other people do. Another thing as a life path 11, you get to be mindful of is sometimes getting caught up into your ideas. Like sometimes you might have a tendency to create like a very, very big elaborate plan or procedure in order to carry out a certain result, when all is necessary is maybe something a little bit smaller. So sometimes you might have a tendency to like over plan or over prepare, or feel like you need to do all of this extra stuff in order to get this one result. So one of the lessons the 11s get to learn is the ability to take a step outside of themselves and maybe be open to other opportunities to do things, like things that might be shorter or more efficient. So efficiency is something that they get to learn.
Awesome. I have done I'm pretty sure it's probably the same kind of report online, that like
Oh really?
ad banner thing.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I'll just click on that. Oh, my birthday, yeah. Oh, my name, cool, yeah. And yeah, I did that, and yeah, it said the same thing, like that I was a life path 11.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't as detailed as what you just said right now. That was really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, and quite accurate as well. So
Awesome.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
And as
cool.
an 11 too, so just like diving even a little bit deeper, is one thing to know is, so every year there is a universal year number. So it's like the frequency of the year. So 2021 has a universal year number of 5. So 2, 2, and 1 add up to 5. So that means that every day throughout the course of the year, there is that frequency present. 5 is a number of freedom, transformation, exploration, travel, wonder, awe, evolution, magic, sensuality, and pleasure. Okay, so that means that throughout the course of the year, there's going to be that kind of essence. So everybody's feeling that to some level. Okay, now being a life path 11, the combined frequency that you're going to be experiencing is going to be a 16-7. So 11 and 5 is 16, 1 and 6 is 7. 7 is the number of universal wisdom. It's the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. It's also the number of the analytical mind, and it's the seeker of truth. So what that would mean is that for you this year, you're probably going to experience moments where you feel called to kind of distance yourself from other people and kind of isolate. Maybe this is your need to contemplate and integrate what it is that you're experiencing. What you get to remember is that this is actually fundamental for your process right now. You just have to make sure that you're communicating that with those people that are closest to you, so that way they're not necessarily taking it personally or receiving it the wrong way. The other thing that the 7 says is that this year you're actually bridging a gap. So there's a pretty major gap. It seems like probably there's kind of like a realization. There's like a very massive breakthrough that I'm feeling that gets to happen for you throughout the course of this year. And it'll be like, there's going to be like this aha moment that bridges a gap between two very important points, is what I'm feeling. More specifically in this one, you're probably strongly feeling that urge for change, that urge for freedom, that urge for kind of like doing something new, because your combined frequency for this month is a 5. So when that's taken into consideration with the universal year, it's 5 and 5 is 10, which reduces to 1, and 1 is novelty, new beginnings, initiative, leadership, independence. So that is probably a new opportunity being presented to you. So there's probably a chance for you to do something new. This is probably going to be something that stimulates your senses. It's really kind of exciting. You're actually being invited to take action that's aligned with this, just ensuring that you're coming from a present space, that you're loving yourself through that process, because every part of the process is necessary for the journey that you're on in this lifetime. So when you're seeing the 1s, just remember to take the initiative, to trust and take the initiative. When you're seeing the 5s, remember that the only constant in life is change, and that you get to live the thrills that life has to offer, because 5 is that fun, kind of exciting energy. And when those 11s are present, especially for a life path 11, you could always drop into your intuition. Because 11 is that number of your intuition speaking to you.
Beautiful. Love that. Thank you.
My
Very
pleasure.
cool. Yes. What did this year mean for you?
So Well, for me personally, or for me like
Yeah, for you
generally?
personally. No, for you personally, like with your personal numbers and
This year's pretty big for me. It's really really exciting. So there's also in numerology we can calculate what's called a decisive age. And this is a year in which we experience what's called what I'm only allowed to call incredible transformation. I'm not allowed to say good or bad. Like that's completely up to the person and how they perceive their experience. And I actually just finished my decisive age. My decisive age was 27, and I turned 28 in January. And for me, I finished my decisive age, and I started a new 9-year pinnacle and a 9-year cycle um, in my numerology chart. So it's like a whole new period, completely different shift in my everyday operations. Like I feel like I'm doing everything in my life differently. Like I feel like I'm living differently. It's been interesting because for the last 28 years, like, 27 years, I had always believed I had to grind and do work hard and this is how I had to do things. And now that's like completely out the window. It's ease, it's flow, it's grace. It's like, it's really just being present with things as they present themselves. And for me, it's really exciting because my pinnacle that I'm running into this year, or this pinnacle of 8, is all about creating a following. It's all about the gathering of tribe, and for me, this is really, really exciting because like I shared with you, like my purpose and my mission, I desire for global impact, and unity across humanity. So for me, it gets me really, really excited because I feel like the enhanced vibrations of being able to bring that into fruition this year.
mm, wow, big.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
pumped about it. I
Yeah, I
dive into my
bet.
chart like very, very often.
Yeah. And you're like, read your chart.
Yes.
Yeah. So good. Um, Danny, what do you think is going on in the world right now?
Right now, in this moment, a lot of deception, a lot of confusion, um, and also at the same time, a lot of magic. Yeah, I feel that even though what is in mainstream media may seem discouraging to some people, that there's magic happening. Like there's magic happening right here between me and you. There's magic happening with a lot of people that you and I know, and all across the world, with leaders, with space holders, with healers, with indigenous peoples, with nature, with the elements. Like there's so much happening right now that is for us. And it's really 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 exciting. It's really exciting because there is something that we get to tune into, this unified frequency of unconditional love, like coming back to the fact that we're all the same, the fact that we are all just unique expressions of that, and that when we come from that space and express that love and meet others in that unconditional love, that we can come closer together, that we can come together as people. Like there's so many people uniting all over the world right now, that are coming together, that are speaking and putting things in the works of bringing realizations and awareness of what it is that is happening in the world, of what we get to do as a people, and I believe that that's what we get to focus on. That's what we get to drive our energy and our attention to, so for the people who might see stuff that's from mainstream media, can you switch your content? Can you switch who you follow? You know, can you trade that out for something that's a little bit more mindful for yourself?
Mm, yes, raise that vibe within yourself
Mhm.
to in turn raise the vibe of the collective, right?
Yes.
Um, what would you recommend to somebody that is kind of maybe just starting to wake up to what's happening and is feeling lost and really confused and all the things that happen when you're kind of just starting to wake up to things?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the advice that I could give myself, right? If I could have gone back and given myself advice,
Yep, perfect.
one, trust your intuition. Try to create a relationship with your intuition earlier on.
And
And
how would someone go about doing that for starters? Because maybe somebody that hasn't,
yeah, I
has
would
no
say,
relationship would be like, what the fuck is intuition? Like,
yeah, yeah.
what is that? Yeah.
Well, for a lot of people, I describe it as it can be perceived in the body as your gut feeling. Like that gut feeling that it tells you yes or no, or like it stops you from doing something. The way you can strengthen the relationship with your intuition is by practicing present moment awareness. So dropping into the present moment by tuning into your five senses. So pretty much at any given moment, whatever you're doing, can you tune into what you can feel, what you can taste, what you can smell, what you can see, what you can hear. Doing that drops your attention, your awareness from your mind into your body, bringing you really, really, really present, which is where you're going to be able to discern the message from your intuition.
Mm.
Um, and from there you get more used to hearing it, feeling it, because once you drop into the present moment, then you can just ask yourself those questions. I start with baseline questions. Like you can start with baseline questions, things that you know are true, that you already know the answer to see, like it's like, hey, give me a yes, or ask yourself like, hey, do I go by Danny Dang in this lifetime? And if I feel that, like, if I feel something, okay, and then I say, do I go by, Bob in this lifetime? I don't feel anything. It's like, okay, cool. So this sensation is my yes. This sensation is my no. And everybody is going to be a little bit different. It's not any certain way for everyone. It's not like cookie cutter or anything like that. So you get to the way you develop the relationship with your intuition is by really just dropping in and being present. The more you can drop into your body, the more your body will show you, the infinite wisdom that it holds.
Mm. Um, yeah, I really love that about giving yourself those base questions and then tuning in. Because that just shows you, right? Like straight up.
Yeah.
Because generally something that I would say to people was, like, how does this, when you're listening to somebody speak, tune in and see how that feels for you. Like, I would say, does it feel
Yeah.
light? Does it feel uplifting? Does it feel good? Does your body feel good? Like, and then maybe that's like good for you or true for you. And if maybe if it feels like, I don't know, like really heavy, or
Yeah.
maybe even like a little sick, or like your stomach's like churning, or maybe that's not great for you. But for those that may have never really tuned into their body, maybe they're just like, they can't even sense that stuff yet, So I really love those baseline questions.
Yeah.
Do I go by Ruth? Yes. How does that feel? Like, that's perfect. I think that's perfect. So thank you for that. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. It's been an hour already, Dane. That went like,
Really?
yeah, that just
Wow.
flew by. Oh my God. Love that. Um, where can people find you if they want to work with you?
Oh, everywhere, I'm trusting. I am Danny Dang on Facebook, at Danny Dang 9313 through Instagram. Those are probably my two most commonly used platforms. You can find my bookings through my website. I do a lot of like live videos, a lot of like live readings and stuff like that on Facebook and on Instagram. But essentially there.
Beautiful. And what's the weather like in Puerto Rico right now?
Oh, summer is starting, so it's starting to get even hotter, but it is amazing.
I
Super,
bet.
super beautiful. It's like, every day is like 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like, what,
Which is what? Sorry,
20 something for
oh,
you.
sorry, you just cut out there. Sorry, 20
I
something
think,
degrees.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah. Perfect. So
Probably.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
mildish, but warm. Yeah? Warm but mild?
Yeah, like it's warm, but like it's a tropical island, so you have like the ocean breeze.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get like super hot. And I
Yeah,
live
nice.
in a house on top of a hill up in the mountains. So
That sounds perfection. Amazing.
yeah, it's beautiful.
What a life. What a life, Danny, huh? Well, Danny, thank you so much for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I can't believe it's been an hour. Honestly, like I feel like I blinked and the time has gone. So, you know, this must have been something that needed to happen. I truly feel.
Right.
Yeah, just I really appreciate time. So thank you so much.
Yes,
And,
thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, it's been an absolute pleasure.